Well, hi everyone, welcome back to The Able Gardener. And today I'm finishing up on my very simple drip system. Now, I started probably a couple months ago putting in this drip system in my garden so that all my garden boxes would be watered on a regular basis. And you know, that's something that plants do like, is to be watered on a regular basis. So let me go to a little bit quieter area of my yard and show you just the different components that go into just a very simple drip system that you can put in too. If I can do this, you guys can do it. Well, one of the smarter things I think I did before putting in my drip system was to get a pad of paper, a piece of paper, and draw out my property line or the area that I wanted to put my drip system. And that way I could estimate how much hose I needed, how many connectors and which connectors I needed to buy. And I could take that into the store, and in my case it was Lowe's home improvement store. It's very convenient for me to get there. And so when I went into Lowe's, I just had my sheet of everything that I thought I needed at least to get started. And there are a lot of websites you can go to on everything you need to put in a drip system, from the most simple to the most complex, but mine is just a very simple system. And as I said, I got everything here, pretty much everything here from Lowe's. And larger tubing is something you're going to definitely need. Your large tubing comes in different sizes. This from Lowe's is 5/8 inch tubing. And I know they make 1/2 inch, 5/8, 3/4, and 1 inch tubing, but since I was going to get everything in the same spot, then I just went with the 5/8 inch tubing. And something else you'll need is the smaller 1/4 inch tubing. This is just the solid tubing. Let's call it distribution tubing, 1/4 inch. This is a roll of 50 feet, and this is what you take from your larger tubing and go off to your tree or your plants or vegetables, whatever. And this is something else you can hook up to the larger tubing, but this is a soaker hose, a certain kind of soaker hose, and it has little holes about every 6 inches around the tubing. What's nice, if you can get those holes all lined up shooting down at the ground, then you'll have it going to each plant that you have every 6 inches, or, well, whatever you have that you're growing in your garden. They have another soaker hose that's just like a regular soaker hose that you can put in your garden. That looks like a garden hose, but that's never worked out for me here with my hard water. So I've used this, and I didn't get it pointed straight down to the ground, and it started shooting everywhere out of the garden boxes onto the sidewalk. So I ended up getting some straw and covering up this soaker hose with straw, and that helped a lot. So let's start off attaching your soaker system to your house, or your hose bib coming off of your house. And this is just a combination pressure regulator and filter system. Now you'll probably absolutely want a pressure regulator, taking the pressure of the water down from whatever it is coming out of your house. It could be 35 psi, 75 psi, but what you want for your drip is right around 30 psi. So that's what this one is. It takes your water pressure down to 30 psi so that your system doesn't, well, start falling apart, or your little drippers don't start just popping off the end. And this comes in 2 pieces. It comes with the little attachment piece. It goes on the top, and this will go to your hose bib. And then this comes down, and you need a little attachment to go to your hose. This was separate. It's about $1. It was like $1.79, and then just it screws on the bottom. And then this is a little universal attachment that goes to your hose, and here's a little piece of the 5/8 inch tubing, and you'll just push this on as hard as you can, and then pull that little plastic nut down, and it clamps down onto your hose so that it doesn't leak. So that's how your system gets started. And if I have time today, I'll go over and I'm going to put in one more line of soaker hose in my garden, and I'll show you exactly what I'm going to do, not coming from a hose bib, but it's coming from an actual timer. So I have a timer in my garden, and I'll set it to water the garden, say once a day for 30 minutes, something like that. But I'll do that in just a minute. Let me talk about some of the other things that you'll probably want to pick up. One of those would be something to get the holes into your hose. And I don't know if this is universal or not. I think that can take a couple of different sizes at least. And you can see, let me put it in front of this. You can probably see where that little hole puncher comes out, and it punches a hole, punches a hole into your tubing. And then that way you can put on one of your little flag dripper like this. This is a little 2-gallon per hour flag dripper. And this is where it comes in really handy to use a pair of gloves, because after you punch quite a few of these into tubing around your yard, your fingers are going to get really sore. So as I said, this is called a little flag dripper. They come in, I believe 2 gallons an hour, 3 gallons an hour, 4 gallons an hour, just a variety of different quantities coming out the dripper. So you're going to need the hole punch, and I had this little hole punch around. I don't know if it came with one of these connectors or something, but this is a little hand-awl puncher, and I couldn't get this to work more than a couple of times, and then my hand was really hurting. So I wouldn't go with the hand-awl. I would go with the little automatic punch. Another item that you'll want to pick up is a tube cutter, and this just cuts your tubing very easily. I noticed though that just with a good pair of scissors, I was able to cut the tubing also, the larger tubing. The next thing, let's see, I'll discuss these little guys. These are just to keep the hose or your hoses down at ground level. So if your hoses are getting a little wily, the 1/4-inch hose isn't that bad. These are nice if you have a piece of 1/4-inch hose, and you can put it down like this, and if your hose is a little wild, shove that down into the ground, and then you have your hose taken care of. But the little metal pegs to go in the ground to hold your larger hose, these really came in handy, and I think I bought 1 or 2 packages of these and realized they were too expensive, and then I started making some out of wire hangers, and I could get 3 of these out of 1 wire hanger, so that was the cheaper way to go to do that. So let's get to some attachments. Here are the universal attachments that will go. This is a corner, of course, attachment, universal. These are nice. They're a little bit more expensive than the pressure attachments, but I just like these a lot more because it's very easy to get your hose back off of these if you make a mistake, whereas the pressure ones, it takes a lot to get your hose out of these pressure attachments. So with the pressure attachments, you just have to shove your hose in as hard as you can, and then it usually doesn't come back out. But with the universal attachment, it's just so easy. You back the little plastic nut back, push this on as far as you can, and then start backing the nut down back onto it to create a watertight seal. And so these universal attachments are connectors. They come in corners, the straight pieces, and they come in the little T's. And let's see, I've got a little T here. There's a little T. So you can figure out basically how many of those you'll need before you even go in to buy any. And I got a little shutoff valve. I think I bought a couple of these shutoff valves, or I had them, I don't remember. So if there's a section in your garden that you decide you just want to shut the drip off for that area for some reason, then get those little guys. These are called little hose end clamps. So when you come to the end of your hose, let me show you on this little piece. When you're coming to the end of your large hose, you can just take it and bend it over, and you can wrap some tape around it, or you can put a zip tie around it. Whatever's going to cut the water off, that's what you can do. Or they make these little called hose end clamps, where you run the hose into one side, you bend it over, and then back down through the other side. I hope you guys can see those. It's just a little figure 8, and that clamps off the end of your large hose also. If you make any mistakes in your large hose, if you have like all these little holes that you punched in and you made mistakes and you need to just stop up the hose, then there are these little mistake stoppers, and I don't think I can push this in here right now without some gloves on, but these guys will just take up the holes in your large tubing if you've made a mistake, which, oops, I've made a few, but they do stay in there if you get it pushed in hard enough. Other little connectors, these are for your 1/4-inch tubing. These are just two little straight connectors, and just like the larger tubing, these come in corner shape, and they come in little T's. And these are what I use most of, just punching into the larger tube and then taking a piece of the smaller tube, and that's how the larger tube and the smaller tube get connected. Now, as for the little drippers and things like that, there is just such a variety, it's crazy. So you just need to figure out what plant you're watering and how much water you think it needs and the amount of time that your drip is going. So if my drip is going, say, 30 minutes a day, 30 minutes every morning, but there are some plants that I don't want to have, say, 2 gallons an hour, like these little green dripper or green flag drippers are, 2 gallons an hour. This is just a little spray. You hook that to the 1/4-inch tubing again, and you usually have to hook this to something so it's sitting up off the ground, but it's just a little spray that comes out. And then these little guys I picked up the other day, this is 1 gallon per hour that just hooks up to the 1/4-inch, and then it just drips out this other side, 1 gallon per hour. So later on, when you have your drip system going, you have to start watching your plants. If you have some plants that are drought tolerant, you're not going to want to water that very often or very much water every day. And then some others, just like to get soaked every day. So it's just something you're going to have to figure out with the plants that you have. And also your garden plants. Not a lot of garden vegetables like to just be soaked every day. So maybe that can be on a whole different system that doesn't get watered every day, maybe every other day or twice a week. Some other little clamps I picked up, the little 5/8 inch clamp, and that's just I'm running some of my hose up the side of a wall or up the side of a post a little bit, and these clamps will hold it against the post. And then I picked up some for the 1/4-inch, and this came in really handy, running some of my 1/4-inch hose up onto my deck to water my plants. So I ran the hose up the post that my deck is on, and then I was just able to attach that to hold the hose right against the post, so it wasn't hanging off and, I don't know, looking kind of clumsy. Oh, I know something really important that I mentioned before, pair of good gloves. Get a couple of pair of gloves if you're going to put in a large system. And this is something that just was invaluable to me, is a knee pad. I took it with me everywhere because it's horrible on your knees to go around your yard putting in a drip system if you don't have something to cushion your knees. Some kind of lighter came in handy, just to, if it was hard to push on like one of the drippers or something, to just put the flame underneath the end of the hose or under the end of the tubing just a little bit, just to warm it up, and then it was a lot easier to push onto whatever dripper I was using. And that brings me to a couple other drippers, kinds of drippers that I purchased. This one isn't a drip, it's more of just a little sprinkler, which is nice. 1/4-inch tubing goes on this end, and then it unscrews to, well, it comes completely off, but you can also crank it down to where it just drips a little bit. So this is like 0 to maybe 10, 20 gallons an hour. I'm not sure exactly the largest amount it will put out, but you can turn it all the way down to where it puts out hardly anything or nothing. So these little sprinklers came in really handy, putting them in different areas of the yard. And then this is a little sprinkler you can pick up. I found a lot of these at Walmart at the end of season. They were all marked down to like 50 cents. And they come with a little 1/4-inch tubing connector And then the 1/4 inch tubing, this is for going to the large, 1/4 inch to the large tubing. And then you just connect your 1/4 inch tubing right here. You open up the sprinkler, and this will put out I think it'll put out water for about 5 to 6 feet in a circle. So this was really nice in a lot of areas where I had a lot of small things growing, and I just really needed a sprinkler in that area. So 5 or 6 feet when it's totally opened up, those are nice. And then the other one that my neighbor gave me is this little red guy. And what I did, I'll just try and run it through, show you. It's hooked up to this. Well, it's hooked up to about 6 feet of 1/4 inch tubing, and I taped it to this tomato stake. It's a metal tomato stake. So I just taped it in several places, and this is a little sprinkler, just like, just like this guy is, pretty much. And you can close it down all the way, or you can open it up to where it's probably about a 2 or 3 foot diameter. And I could put that in the ground in different places where I thought I needed the water to shoot out a little bit bigger, or have it up in the air more, and it's hitting a lot of different ground cover and things like that. So this really worked. It came in handy doing it that way. So that's about it for the system, or what I needed for the system that I put in. One other thing I found not invaluable, but pretty handy, was I got some different dish pans that I had, my camping dish pans, and I found these guys just laying around, but you can pick them up at Walmart, like a stack of 3 or 4 for, I don't know, $2.99, something like that. And that way I'm able to separate all my different items, and I carry this around with me where I go to put in my drip, and I can just separate everything and know where everything is. And what it helped with was me not opening up a pack of drippers, and then they all got spread on the ground and I started losing them. I was able to stick them back in here, and actually having 2 dish pans, because the other one has has different objects in it that are a little bit bigger. This was the other thing that I found handy, was just a pair of good nippers, because I was putting some of my some of my little sprinklers and my little flag drips, I was putting them in areas where I actually needed to cut back some of the ground cover and some of the bushes so I could even get in to put it down on the ground. So that's that. Let's take this filter water pressure regulator over around to my garden, and I'll show you how I'm going to hook this up. Well, here's the area in my garden where I'm going to be putting on another drip line. This is the first one that we attached to the house, and this is just a simple pressure regulator. It doesn't have the filter on it, so I'll be replacing this with one of these as soon as I can pick one up. But on this side, simple timer. This is just an orbit timer. You set the clock, what time you want it to start, how long you want it to go, and how often. So this is really handy to have, and it has 2 outlets. So putting in my second system, this is the small piece that comes with the filter pressure regulator. So I'm not sure why I took that off of there, just to show you, I guess. And these are all attachments that are hand tight. So you just want to tighten them just as tight as you could by using your hands. Don't use any, pipe wrench or anything like that to put these on. So that's everything connected. Since I won't get this connected with the hose tonight, I'll be doing that tomorrow. I did put on this little on-off valve. Turned it in the off position. Tighten that back up. Everything is tightened hand tight. And then this is the universal connector down here that goes to my tubing, my large tubing. And I'll be doing that tomorrow. So there's my system. That's how easy it is to hook to your home and get started with your drip system. Well, hey everyone, thanks for joining me this evening and watching me go through everything I did to put in a very simple drip system. And I may have said earlier, but if I can do this, anybody can do it. So once again, thanks for joining me, and I'll be talking to you guys later. Oh, any questions or comments, please put them below and I'll get back to you just as soon as I can. God bless everybody. Bye-bye.